Though Somalia is a predominantly Muslim nation, it had more of secular and spiritual stance on Islam. Though the communist revolutionary government of 1969 promoted secularism, the country was already a secular prior that. Even pre-independence secularism was the norm. If we look at the old 7th century customary indigenous Somali law, Somalia is similar to many Western secular states that separate religion and state. There is a Somali saying, "One can change his religion, one cannot change the law," which clearly shows how religion is a matter of a private, individual business, while the law is communal and public, subject to all. If I go back to modern history, Islamic radicalism first reached the shore of Somalia in the early 1980s, but in an ideological manner, and faced harsh repulsion from the government back then, such as jailing Islamic preachers and to some extreme killing them under fire squad. But the real form of Islamism set its stone in Somalia during mid-1990s after the intra-clan war ended. This was the period when Somali females began to change their secular and traditional attires for the more extreme Wahhabi outfits, and this was also the period when the first military Islamic movement came to existence, Al-Ittihad. However, the more extreme and deadly version of Islamic radicalism has come alive during late 2006/early 2007 when Ethiopian forces financially backed by USA toppled a moderate Islamic movement from power. These moderate Islamic movements were the same ones that destroyed the warlord era of Somalia. So in reality the invasion opened a Pandora box of extremist forces that evolved from an offshoot of the more moderate and traditional Somali Islamic movement, Union of Islamic Courts, which all hell went loose. Somalia was once a secular paradise is an exact description of something that was vastly accurate. As with the pseudo-socialism of the revolutionary government, the superficial cosmopolitanism and sense of modernity were frankly similar. The Somali intellectual class were formally educated people who would concentrate their knowledge in their particular field of study and take on the role of encouraging young intellectuals to enlighten the society with their perspectives. Basically putting Somali and national values first and religion to be kept as personal belief. Somalia was really well on its way to ending up like the West, and if the Civil War and this tragic backtracking to the 7th century hadn't gone down, we'd likely be comparable to many Western countries today. Unfortunately, that's not the case. The fanatics and Gulf countries have indoctrinated the younger confused generation. As the results of hypothetical situations will be better in the long term if you convince the people to have moderation support. But certainly right now, there is no alternative to the Salafi Wahhabi-funded oxymorons crazies. They're either mollycoddle, because criticizing them is like criticizing Islam, or don't address them. Neither can do in the long term, but they absolutely need to be confronted and challenged properly due to their destructive role on Somalia. It's these sort of Wahhabis that distort the faith of Islam, and use the cloak of Islam to try to rob people of who they are. And if you criticize them, you will be labeled anti-Islam. Surely you all have seen or have stories passed down from secular Somalia. It was nothing like Syed Barre's totalitarian regime or these extremists that are currently causing havoc and the control that is currently in place. Secularism relies on a bunch of cultural foundations for it to be even implemented. I'm pessimistic that it is even achievable in Somalia considering its culture today. Although secular Somalia was beautiful, one that would be focused on God would have been ideal. With the absence of religious enforcement, murderers, cannibalism, and tribalism is rampant. The power vacuum after the totalitarian regime gave way to a power vacuum that now is headed by an Islam-focused society that conducts beheadings, stoning of women and the intolerable and a shackled country. Seeing that during the past 30 years Wahhabism became a trend through its taboo nature in Somali society and its fringe status making it desirable, do you think people will reject it now that they have tasted Wahhabism in action via Al-Shabaab? Much the same way Afghan society became conservative after the fall of the communists, the radicalism made the society yearn once again for liberalism after their departure. I see the same happening in Somalia. Their Wahhabis had a nice thing going for them. No one at any point before 2006 saw them in power, and no one saw the full extent of their subculture. People just took the trendy parts like the ninja outfits, and applied them. But now that people have seen the entire subculture and sect for what it is, I believe that Somalis will usher in a period of liberalization and secularization that we have never seen before. I know for sure that religious conservatism and fundamentalism is going to be buried for a long time when the militants depart. The Islamic studies curriculum you hear is the pure Wahhabism, exported from Saudi Arabia, that teaches children that all those who are not Wahhabi are non-believers, including the children's parents, and that it is okay to kill non-Muslims. Religious education is part and parcel of the curriculum of all schools in Somalia, and most parents are unaware of exactly what their children are being taught, a radical form of Islam. The radicalization of Somalia's youth has already started spilling over the war-torn country's borders to its neighbors, influencing the region's fragile security situation. Saudi Arabia is funneling a lot of money into Somalia to promote Wahhabism. As such, Wahhabi mosques have sprung up all over the place, even in tiny villages such as these, where a decent home will be constructed and then converted into a mosque. It will take a lot of time to tackle this dangerous ideology that's consuming the brains of Somalis. Wahhabism is a toxic composure to mankind and to existing cultures. Today no one would have imagined how tolerant we were back in the pre-Civil War era. Let's hope for Somalia to be secular again and ditch this backwards death cult.